We are now ready to begin our second activity. Today, we are going to be classifying living things into different groups. We can classify them into different groups based on the way that they look, maybe, for example, based on the number of legs they have. We could split them into different groups based on what they eat. Maybe if they're herbivores, where they just eat plants, carnivores, where they eat animals, or omnivores, where they eat plants and animals. We could also split them into different groups based on the way that they move. So for today, we are going to be working in pairs or in groups of 3. Each group is going to get a set of cards. There's 15 cards altogether in this set. Each group will also get 3 strings and they will get a couple of different labels. So what we want to do is see how we can group or classify these living things that are listed on the cards. And it's important to remember we will be using observation, so looking at the different animals on the cards or different living things, but also there is information on the back of the cards that you can read to help you to decide what group they're going to go in. So today I am going to demonstrate how we will divide these living things into 3 different groups based on the way that they move. So the 3 groups I've decided to make are living things that walk, living things that swim, and then living things that fly. So first of all, we know we are going to set up our different groups like a set. So it's important that we then use these strings to form the circles. And we now know that we're setting up our sets. So we will have 3 different groups. And again, we're going to be placing different living things into these groups. Okay, so the groups that I have come up with are, for example, living things that walk, living things that swim, and then living things that fly. So based on the cards, you will look through the cards and also read a little bit more about the information on the back of them. So straight away, I will pick out the cards that I know that have living things on them that swim. So this guy here, which is a worm. This is also then a flatworm. We know these guys, the jellyfish. This guy, which is a porpoise. And also then we have an octopus. So they go into the area where we have labeled it swim. I'm then looking at the different living things in these set of cards that fly. So when I look through them, I can see a butterfly, I can see a bee, and I can see a ladybird. I will then look through the cards again and try and find where are the different living things that can actually walk. So we can see a squirrel, we can see a chimpanzee, and we can see a lizard, and we can also then see a red deer. So straight away, I have split my living things into 3 different groups or 3 different sets. But now it's important that we look at these 3 different sets, which are walk, swim, and fly, and we look at, do we know if any of these living things that can overlap in terms of the different ways that they move? So is there a living thing that can walk and swim? Is there a living thing that can walk, swim, and fly? Is there a thing that might just swim and fly? Is there a thing that will fly and walk? So we're just going to look at different ways that we can then set up our groups or our sets. So again, you can take away the cards for the minute and you can put them just to the side. Now what we're going to do is we could just work with 2 pieces of strings where we are just overlapping one group or one set. So we know, for example, anything that will swim and maybe something that walks as well. So for example, for just these 2 groups, we could have something that swims and also walks then in the center. So that's important that we have one group that has swim and we have a separate group that just walks, but in the middle, we can then write on our sticky notes, we will write down the living things that walk and swim. So walk and swim. So again, we will look at the different living things on the cards again. So we know in here we have walk and swim. So with looking at our cards, we know that an octopus swims, but he can kind of walk on the land as well. So they will be placed into the intersection or the middle piece. We then have a porpoise, so he swims. The jellyfish, again, swims. Then we have the two different types of worms, they swim. Then we could look at the animals that we had in the area of walk, or the group that was for walk. So for example, we know the deer that they walk. We have the lizard that walks, but again, you can check to see if he does swim as well. Then we also have the chimpanzees, and then we have the squirrels. And then from the groups that we had fly, we can then look in terms of do they walk or swim as well. So we do know that the ladybirds do walk. We do know that also the bees walk, and we do know that the butterflies will move and walk as well on the flowers, but they do also fly. So this is a way that we can set up our sets. And again, we can then add in a third set if we wanted to and see is there 3 groups that are overlapping as well. So this is the end of our activity today.